Forward TV. The world is thinking.
I would like to know more about the testicles. And a few years ago, that would have given me pause. But nowadays, I hear questions like that quite often. This one actually came from Tim Ferriss, who I listened to this morning. Turned around, met Tim. He said, hi. I said, how are you? We exchanged pleasantries, and he, in fact, was serious. He wanted to know about the castration process of lambs. And it was an old dirty job we did that ran recently, and I didn't have a chance to get into the details with Tim then, what with all the registering, but I do now. And so the Dirty Jobs crew and I were called to a little town in Colorado called Craig. It's only a couple dozen square miles. It's in the Rockies, and the job in question was sheep rancher. My role on the show, for those of you who haven't seen it, it's pretty simple. I'm an apprentice, and I work with the people who actually do the jobs in question, and my responsibilities are to simply try and keep up and give an honest account of what it's like to be these people for one day in their life. Job in question, herding sheep. Great. We go to Craig, and we check into a hotel, and I realize the next day that castration is going to be an absolute part of this work. So normally, I never do any research at all, but this is a touchy subject, and I work for the Discovery Channel, and we want to portray accurately whatever it is we do, and we certainly want to do it with a lot of respect for the animals. So I call the Humane Society, and I say, look, I'm going to be castrating some lambs. Can you tell me the deal? And they're like, yeah, it's pretty straightforward. They use a band, basically, a rubber band like this, only a little smaller. This one was actually around the playing cards I got yesterday, but it had a certain familiarity to it. And I said, well, what exactly is the process? And they said the band is applied to the tail tightly, and then another band is applied to the scrotum tightly. Blood flow is slowly retarded. A week later, the parts in question fall off. Great, got it. Okay, I call the SPCA to confirm this. They confirm it. I also call PETA, just for fun, and they don't like it, but they confirm it. Okay, that's basically how you do it. So the next day I go out, and I'm given a horse, and we go get the lambs, and we take them to a pen that we built, and we go about the business of animal husbandry. Melanie is the wife of Albert. Albert's the shepherd in question. Melanie picks up the lamb, one hand on both legs on the right, likewise on the left. Lamb goes on the post, she opens it up. All right, great. Albert goes in. I follow Albert, the crew's around. I always watch the process done the first time before I try it. Being an apprentice, you do that. Albert reaches in his pocket to pull out, this black rubber band, but what comes out instead is a knife. And I'm like, that's not rubber at all, And he kind of flicked it open in a way that caught the sun that was just coming over the Rockies. It was very, it was impressive. In the space of about 2 seconds, Albert had the knife between the cartilage of the tail, right next to the butt of the lamb, and very quickly the tail was gone and in the bucket that I was holding. A second later, with a big thumb and a well-calloused forefinger, he had the scrotum firmly in his grasp, and he pulled it toward him like so, and he took the knife, and he put it on the tip. Now, you think you know what's coming, Michael. You don't. Okay. He snips it, throws the tip over his shoulder, and then grabs the scrotum and pushes it upward, and then his head dips down, obscuring my view. But what I hear is a slurping sound and a noise that sounds like Velcro being yanked off a sticky wall, and I'm not even kidding. Can we roll the video? No, I'm kidding. We don't. I thought it best to talk in pictures. So I do something now I've never, ever done on a Dirty Job shoot, ever. I say, time out, stop. You guys know the show, we use take one. We don't do take two. There is no writing, there's no scripting, there's no nonsense. We don't fool around, we don't rehearse. We shoot what we get. I said, stop. This is nuts. I mean, you know what I mean? This is crazy. We can't do this, and Albert's like, what? And I'm like, I don't know what just happened, but there are testicles in this bucket, and that's not how we do it. He said, well, that's how we do it. And I said, why would you do it this way? And before I even let him explain, I said, I want to do it the right way with the rubber bands? And he says, like the Humane Society? And I said, yes, like the Humane Society. Let's do something that doesn't make the lamb squeal and bleed. We're on in 5 continents, dude. We're on twice a day on the Discovery. We can't do this. He says, okay. He goes to his box and he pulls out a bag of these little rubber bands. Melanie picks up another lamb, puts it on the post. Band goes on the tail, band goes on the scrotum. Lamb goes on the ground. Lamb takes 2 steps, falls down. Gets up, shakes a little, takes another couple steps, falls down. I'm like, this is not a good sign for this lamb at all. Gets up, walks to the corner. It's quivering, and it lies down, and it's in obvious distress. And I'm looking at the lamb, and I say, Albert, how long? Just, when's he get up? He's like, a day. I said, day? How long does it take him to fall off? A week. Meanwhile, the lamb that he had just did his little procedure on, he's just prancing around, bleeding stopped. He's, nibbling on some grass, frolicking. And I was just so blown away at how completely wrong I was in that second. And I was reminded how utterly wrong I am so much of the time. And I was especially reminded of what a ridiculously short straw I had that day, because now I had to do what Albert had just done, and there are like 100 of these lambs in the pen. And suddenly this whole thing's starting to feel like a German porno, and I'm like... Melanie picks up the lamb, puts it on the post, opens it up. Albert hands me the knife. I go in, tail comes off. I go in, I grab the scrotum, tip comes off. Albert instructs, push it way up there. I do. Push it further. I do. The testicles emerge. They look like thumbs coming right at you, right? And he says, bite them. Just bite them off. And I heard him. I heard all the words. Like, how did I get here? How did I get here? It's just one of those moments where the brain goes, off on its own, and suddenly I'm standing there in the Rockies, and all I can think of is the Aristotelian definition of a tragedy. Aristotle says a tragedy is that moment when the hero comes face to face with his true identity. And I'm like, this is a jacked up metaphor. I don't like what I'm thinking right now, and I can't get this thought out of my head, and I can't get that vision out of my sight. So I did what I had to do. I went in, and I took him like this, and I yanked my head back, and I'm standing there with 2 testicles on my chin. And now I can't shake the metaphor, okay? I'm still in poetics and Aristotle, and I'm thinking, out of nowhere, 2 terms come crashing into my head that I hadn't heard since my classics professor in college drilled them there, and they are anagnorisis and peripeteia. Anagnorisis and peripeteia. Anagnorisis is the Greek word for discovery. Literally, the translation, the transition from ignorance to knowledge is anagnorisis. It's what our network does. It's what Dirty Jobs is, and I'm up to my neck in anagnorises every single day. Great. The other word, peripeteia, that's the moment in the great tragedies, Euripides and Sophocles. That's the moment where Oedipus has his moment where he suddenly realizes that hot chick he's been sleeping with and having babies with is his mother, okay? That's peripety or peripeteia. And this metaphor in my head, I got anagnoris and peripeteia on my chin. I got to tell you, it's such a great device, though. When you start to look for peripeteia, you find it everywhere. Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense, right? He spends the whole movie trying to help the little kid who sees dead people, and then boom, oh, I'm dead, peripeteia. It's crushing when the audience sees it the right way. Neo in The Matrix, oh, I'm living in a computer program. That's weird. These discoveries that lead to sudden realizations, and I've been having them over 200 dirty jobs. I have them all the time, but that one drilled something home in a way that I just wasn't prepared for. And as I stood there, looking at the happy lamb that I had just defiled, but it looked okay. Looking at that poor other little thing that I'd done it the right way on, and I just was struck by, if I'm if I'm wrong about that, and if I'm wrong so often in a literal way, what other peripatetic misconceptions might I be able to comment upon? Because look, I'm not a social anthropologist, but I have a friend who is, and I talk to him, and he says, hey, Mike, look, I mean,